Alrighty, guys, welcome back. We are going once again Facebook Live, second week in a row. So once the guests do join, start watching. We will definitely get straight into it. We'll fire your questions away as we go as well into any Origin topic conversations. Look, straight away, I want to introduce Hayden from the Entertain House. I know a lot of people who will be onto this video will know Hayden and watch a lot of his videos. Please go ahead, check him out, YouTube, Instagram, all the channels basically. Hayden, how are you? It's the night before Origin.
It was the night before Origin, as some would say, comparing it to Christmas, one of the greatest times of the year. It feels like it's come around so quick. It feels like this season, which has been so unpredictable, which is why Origin can just become unpredictable. We're probably not going to pick first try scorer because it's probably going to end up being Tavita Pangai Jr. But yeah, very excited for the State of Origin tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's a massive start to the series and probably for mine the closest series we've had in a long time in terms of teams and how they've made up at the moment. We've got two teams I think on paper are perfectly matched, especially now with the late withdrawal of Latrell Mitchell, who I thought was a massive strike weapon for the Blues. It's a shame for the Blues fans out there and the Blues team itself to not have him as in the team moving forward and for game one, I should say. As a Queensland fan, how did it make you feel when you heard Latrell was out?
Well, as I've said numerous times, you don't wish injury on anyone. So obviously, I wish Latrell all the best in his recovery. But I think it's a massive out, especially what New South Wales were able to do against Queensland throughout that 2021 series with those massive points. That was the centres pairing of Tom Trbojevic and Latrell Mitchell. So bringing Stephen Crichton in there, who is a premiership winner, a little bit scary, but probably not as scary as Latrell Mitchell. But if the wrong ball is thrown from, Daly Cherry Evans out to Stephen Crichton, we could see one of those intercept tries that he's become famous for.
Yeah, well, he's done it on the big stage before. He's only in grand finals, so we definitely know he has that in his weaponry. A good thing with Stephen Crichton is obviously the club combination with Penrith. So it's pretty much the New South Wales Panthers. We've all seen it. We've all said it in the past. So that's a good thing. But as I said, Latrell Mitchell is a huge loss. I don't think it's a loss you can underestimate. It's definitely one I think as a Blues fan, I couldn't believe it. I actually took a little bit of time to sit there and just think, is this actually happening? Because with Latrell, I was much more confident than I am now without Latrell. So what about your Maroons? I see obviously the jumper, passionate Queensland man. But since the team lists have been announced, obviously a week or so ago, is there anyone that you still wish was running out tomorrow night?
Off the top of my head, obviously being, that Parramatta Eel, I'd love to see Maroon's debut for Jermaine Hopgood, but I think it's a pretty solid side. I did have Reece Walsh over Kalen Ponga based on, the season and Ponga's games, but you've seen how elite he can be on that stage and how great he's becoming at fullback since coming back as well. So there is a little bit of me that worries that some of those errors that creep up into Reece's game might just, give New South Wales some opportunities and plenty of possession throughout the game. But I wish Reece all the best. The only kind of change that I might have had, I think Tino should start. I know he does give away penalties, but if it was me, I'd be starting Tino and then probably putting Flegler off the bench for some strike. Besides that, I'm pretty happy with the Queensland Maroons team. I was quite surprised to see Tom Gilbert in the back row. I had him as 19th man. I could see him coming off the bench, but I guess it's the only position you can play him because you can't have him in the middle or up in the jersey of Carrigan in 13. But there's a few returns to the Origin Arena in David Fifita, and I think it's a pretty strong side. And I think the halves at the moment in their regular season have been firing in Munster and DCE. So, as you said, it should be close.
How are the bookies not have Queensland favourite? That's what I want to know. I don't know how you at the moment you're still $2 outside. As I look at the team and I think Queensland have the superior team only just, but if there was a favourite in this game, I feel like it'd be you guys.
We're absolutely always underdogs, and we seem to win that game one mentality as an underdog as well. I think in a lot of people's mind, we probably go into it as favourites, and I think being underdogs, we probably care about it more. If we were favourites, we'd probably just be like, cool, Origin's on, let's get ready. And now we're just like, oh, we're underdogs, we're out with a proof to point, just like every year. With all those, I don't agree with it, but those stupid comments, New South Wales don't get rugby league coming back to haunt you, but yeah.
What about you're talking about some stereotypes that are around the Queensland side, and we'll just quickly stick with the Queensland side here. What's happened to the loyalty? Because I feel like it's worth questioning. There's been a few players who have stood up time and time again for the Queenslanders. Is it just purely a thing of it's time to move on to the next sort of batch of talent, or was like Gagai, for instance, his performances lately that bad?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I think the club performance of a few players that you've mentioned there isn't great, and obviously the limited game time of Kalen Ponga, I've mentioned, great on the big stage, but limited game time. But I think the same can be said about the Blues here, because the interesting one, obviously, the big one for me is Liam Martin. Liam Martin has had absolutely no game time with the Penrith Panthers. You've had other back rowers ahead of him all season, which makes it really interesting. But has Dane Gagai's time come to an end? Probably. He's played multiple games with Queensland, playing great games for Queensland, ever reliable. But I think there's a lot of speed about the team now. The hammer and the fox, always spoken about. So I think he was always knocking on the door of that position. So I think Billy's, trying to show his own spark of coach. And I think it's some interesting decisions, and we're going to find out in 23 hours whether they work or not.
Yeah, well, you do mention the New South Wales selections there, and there'll be things I'll touch on shortly. There is a little fan question I'll quickly touch on with you. I'm encouraging the fans to come on and ask questions as we go. It is a para question, so I'll get you to answer quickly. Just about obviously a para fan. They've seen us both on the Talking Para podcast. What made you become a para fan?
So para fan comes through my dad. Both my dad and myself born in Queensland. Dad had a lot more time in Queensland as a kid than myself. I am from Tigeham. If you don't know where that is, everyone seems to know where Chermside is. So right near Chermside up there. But Dad was always a Parramatta fan. Got me in the Parramatta jersey probably when I was 1 or 2. And it was pick and stick, really. I think the first time I really, became a true Parramatta fan was probably around 2007 when I got to meet some of the boys, went to this fan day. I guess I was off footy a little bit. There was this little period for me where I was off footy. I think maybe, getting to the end of school, wanting to get good grades, things like that. So I was kind of a neutral, always a para fan, always had my para room, all that stuff, but just not as passionate as I was now. So that was probably between, I would say, 2014 to 2016, where I had this kind of break, and then straight back in. I went, you know what? I just love the Parramatta Eel. Got to get back to their games. So, I always will continue to be a Parramatta fan. There's not a day that goes by where I don't love both of these clubs. Oh, I pointed that way and this way. Yes.
Look, we'll get back onto the Origin now, and please, fans listening, shoot 3 Origin questions for us. I'll talk quickly on the Blues, and an interesting one for mine is the Tevita Pangai Jr. selection, and we can both discuss this one. But I originally questioned it a lot, and I wasn't sure why he was there. For mine, he hasn't been able to control his aggression still. He's still learning that, and I feel like he's been built up all week, and it's real dangerous where this is heading for the Blues and Tevita to be the guy that stops the bash up, who's the instigator for anything. And basically, if you poke a New South Wales player, it's going to be Tevita Pangai straight there in your face, basically giving you under the chops. So I think it's a very dangerous and risky role to have Tevita in, if that's the case and what the Blues have talked about. Look, when I've heard players talking about Tevita so far, they haven't really shied away from this either. They've sort of encouraged it and said he's there for a reason. So it makes you feel like this isn't just media build-up. There is a bit behind this one. As a Queensland fan, I don't. In a way, he'd scare you because he is an intimidating factor. But I think he's someone where you could see like Tino and things like that just poking at him, Carrigan, and easily get him off his game.
Well, absolutely, and the big thing is that you've mentioned that aggressive side as well, which could give away a very crucial penalty to Queensland, or even I hate to say it, but cause an injury to a player if there's a high shot and a lot of lead up in that first half. Because the way that I think Tevita Pangai will play this game is I think he'll probably play 15 to 20 minutes, set the tone early on, where there's maybe one try there early on, which I'll get to my first try pick later. And then I think our boy Junior Paulo will come into his position after that 20-minute and play more of that game time. I think Junior will probably play till about halftime, start the second half, and then maybe Tevita Pangai Jr. coming back in the second half, depending on, depending what they do with Cameron Murray. I think Cameron Murray might be used in the middle at some point. I feel like he has to, but not at hooker. I don't know what these rumours are of Cameron Murray at hooker.
I'm not sure either. This leads us to a fan question here. NRL Vision actually has a good one for us, and I want to bring Hines into this conversation. And for mine as a New South Wales fan, and I said this last week on our Facebook Live when we were on it and talking early about Origin, was I wasn't sure why they'd pick Hines here because I don't know where he's going to come into the game. He felt like for mine, he needed to be on the field for 80 minutes to really have his stamp of approval on the game and how good his form has been. So is he ready to play 9 if Appy goes off? I think he's going to have to. I don't know if Freddie, let's say if it's an early Appy injury or something, or a HIA or something like that, I don't think he'll put Murray or anyone like that on at hooker. It has to be Hines. He's that good for mine. He could probably pull it off, but I'm just worried that he's going to be playing out of position at a high level. And we've seen that, especially for New South Wales in the past, where they select players like this and it goes pear-shaped and it really dents their confidence moving forward at this level. Where are you at with the Hines? I know you obviously don't mind if he goes too well tomorrow night, but if you were Brad Fittler for a minute, how'd you be playing him?
It's a really interesting one. I did have him in my 17. I had him originally at jersey number 14, and I thought he would probably come on for, Jerome Luai, but the more I think about it, I don't think that halves pairing is going to change at all during the game. I think Luai and Cleary are going to play 80, and I also think Coruscant will play 80, which makes it really interesting for Hines. But if Appy was to come off and the plan is to get Hines in that role, you've seen players who can play halfback, or not, maybe not halfback, but players who can play at the 9 with a bit of a kicking game. Reid Marnie, the former Eel, obviously not in the Origin arena, but he did a few times. Ben Hunt has gone from, a 7 into a 9 with a kicking game. So someone like Hines with a great kicking game and great attack, I don't think he could start at 9 if there was, Appy to be HIA early on. It would be really tough getting him in there really on while they're all battling physically. But I really am struggling to work out where he'll play. I spoke to someone else and they said they reckon Nico might play in the back row, but I think he's too small for that personally.
And the other rumour I've heard, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this as well, is that he'll go on and play 5'8", and Luai will go into hooker, because the other worrying factor here for the Blues is Appy hasn't played 80 minutes all year. So it's not like he's done this at a club level and being fine with it. He actually hasn't played 80 minutes at all year. So it's a worry. It has to be a concern because Origin just goes to that next level. We all know it. And for mine, it's, as I said, I don't know if Hines is the ideal 14 candidate. He had to be there. Just for mine, he had to start. So another one on the Queensland, on the Blues we've got here is obviously with everything that's happened, it's all right to look back on this and sort of think with hindsight, what if? For mine, Campbell Graham, if he was fit, he would have been the 18th man for the Blues and probably walked into the spot that Latrell's now vacated. Obviously, there was news and it was confirmed because he didn't play on the weekend either that I think there was a sternum injury he was carrying at the moment. So that meant he wasn't able to train, and the Blues need their 18th man to obviously train and be with the team and be that guy that sort of gets hit in training, things like that. Now, obviously, it's Stephen Crichton. Campbell Graham, for mine, would have been the ideal replacement for Latrell, but it's true, Hayden just wasn't fit enough, was he?
Absolutely. There was an injury there. And I think if he had played on the weekend, it would have shown that, that injury could have been, faked because of missing out on the side. But I think it's kind of shown that Freddie didn't choose him for the right reason. And that probably seems to be a good reason, a health or medical reason there. So, but absolutely, if he was fully fit, I actually had him as starting center, I believe. Oh, no, sorry, I did not had Tom Trbojevic and Latrell Mitchell, but I had Campbell Graham on the wing over Josh Adokar. I really look forward to seeing Josh Adokar back in the Origin Arena tomorrow night. I think he's an absolute spectacle. But again, like a few other players, just how much game time has he had this year? And has Freddie made the right decision by picking that rather than, if Campbell Graham was fit, would he be on the wing over Adokar?
Yeah, well, for mine, I was the same as you. I had Campbell Graham to start on the wing just because I think Adokar for mine, one game wasn't enough. I know Freddie was burnt last year by not picking him, but I think this year was a little bit different just because of the lack of game time. But obviously, Campbell Graham's injury, unfortunately, is stung in there because there's no argument. I feel like he's probably been the form back of the competition so far, or one of at least the top three. And to see him not in the Origin arena definitely is a bit of a weird one. But once again, so thanks to NRL Vision, we've got another New South Wales question. We don't have any Queensland love at the moment. Send your Queensland questions in. Hayden's dying to answer them. Do you think Young should be started over Murray, who has experience? This is another interesting one for mine. This is where the Blues have to tread a fine line. Now, we've seen a lot of talk about the Burton incident last year and the fact that it's burnt the Blues. I'm all for it burning, and I like that it has. But where were the team when it actually happened? It's taken 6 months for them to realise what happened and where they should have been, and now they want to do something about it. It's sort of like this is a new series. We can't be wrapped up in what happened last year or seasons in the past. This is a series we need to go after and win, because if we don't win this one, there's who knows, it could be another Maroons dynasty. It's unfortunate to say, but for mine, having both Tavita Pangai Jr. and Young starting both firebrands as they've been spoken about this week, it's a dangerous combination to have. For mine, Murray would make more sense to start to take some of that initial Origin brunt out of it and then let Hudson Young come on and do what he does, and that powerful running game he has would be perfect in after about the 20-minute mark for mine. Where would you play Hudson Young? Is he the ideal starter for you or off the bench?
I'm going to disagree with you, and that's not the biased Queenslander in me coming out. I just think when a young guy gets on the field for that first time, they rise to the occasion. And Hudson Young, for mine, I think he could have been chosen via the bench. I had Hamal Olakalatu in front of him in my side. I had Olakalatu in that number 12 jersey, but he's in there. He's in there for a reason. He was the form back rower, especially in the back half of the comp. I really think that he can do a good job of starting. And I think if the game comes down to a real grind, that, Murray comes on after half time and, could change the whole momentum of the game. Whereas if you put someone like Hudson Young in after half time, he's thinking, shit, it's taken a long time, may lead to an error, and that can prove really costly. So, yeah, I think having these younger players who are inexperienced is actually the right move, because they always seem to rise to the occasion. You look at Xavier Coates just 2 years ago, I believe, or he had a great game in, I think it was game 1, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying there. It actually makes a bit of sense now that you've had your wisdom on it. That's why everyone follow the Entertain House. He's full of knowledge. We've got a few Queensland questions coming in now. Thanks, viewers. Thanks for listening. Again, legend, thoughts on Slater moving? This is an interesting one. 24 hours out from the game, or 48 hours when the move happened. Moving Holmes on Crichton and Hammer on Trbojevic is what's been basically confirmed, I feel like, today. What's your thoughts on it?
I actually didn't see this. I mean, I was filming other predictions with content creators. I haven't seen this one. So, okay, so we've got Holmes on Crichton and Hammer on Trbojevic. I probably would disagree with this one. I think Trbojevic and Holmes have been in the Origin arena plenty of times. I think Trbojevic is someone who can stop Holmes, vice versa. I think Hammer's an absolutely great attacker, but I feel like he would probably be able to get through Crichton more than he could Trbojevic. So this is an interesting one because I personally would have had Holmes on Trbojevic and Crichton and Hammer on Crichton. Yeah, okay. So that's official, is it, from Billy Slater?
Well, yeah, I think it was confirmed by the Courier Mail and things like that, and then basically every media has jumped on it. Whether it's mind games, we know what Origin's like, especially this tight. You don't take anything until they've actually run onto the field. But that's what's been rumoured that's happening ever since. I think they wanted, at the time, the Hammer to be up against Latrell for his speed to help sort of counter maybe some of Latrell's brilliance, knowing he'd probably do something brilliant anyway. But now that they've swapped that around, and it's a dangerous one because Hammer's speed could be a real worry for Turbo if he's not fully fit, which we haven't really seen him be fully fit yet this year. And he was basically struggling to catch forwards and having forwards catch him the last few weeks. So imagine a fully fit Hammer down that side of the field would be a dangerous combination for Turbo. One thing on Hammer I wanted to ask you about, do you think he's ready to play centre at Origin level? We've seen how good he is this year at fullback. Centre, and obviously against Tom Trbojevic, who there's always talk about Gagai state of origin. I want to talk about Turbo state of origin, is also a bit of a freak. It's a big step up.
It's a massive step up, and I mentioned he's fantastic in attack, but you're just not too sure defensively. I think he's good at fullback defensively, but I think you wouldn't put him at the fullback over Reece Walsh based on the way that Reece has played this season. But I guess you compare Hammer to Tavita Pangai Jr. in regards to that risk factor. Are they going with the right decision, or will we see, game 2, game 3, Dane Gagai straight back in the side? Because that's probably who you would have in that spot. The other player I forgot to mention, who obviously suspended now, but I had over Tom Gilbert, I had Felice Kafusi, who's having an awesome season, but obviously suspended, made it hard.
He would have been a walk-in for mine. He would have been definitely one of the first penned in for Billy Slater, and a crazy incident has kept him out of at least game 1. Now, question here for on Walsh, I think it's basically saying, are you comfortable with his selection at fullback with Ponga having a couple of good games now in a row and proving he's been able to overcome those head knocks just at least for now? I think it's a tough one because you could have had either of them off the bench as well, but that means Harry Grant or Ben Hunt misses out. And I don't know if Queensland are in a position or they want to do that either. So where are you at with the Walsh selection?
Yeah, well, I think with the Reece Walsh selection at fullback, I think it's the better choice based off the form of the year. I guess Origin's very different to that. And I know we've seen previous players, Darius Boyd, play on the wing, play at fullback, different positions throughout the Origin career. But if you were to have Ponga at fullback, I wouldn't have Reece Walsh in the side, because you mentioned there Harry Grant, Ben Hunt above him. And I don't think you can trust Reece Walsh on the wing. I just don't think he'd be able to handle the position. I don't think he would be fantastic at centre. I think Reece Walsh is designed for that fullback role. Then again, I was wrong about Trbojevic because I thought he was a complete fullback and then, shined at centre. But the way to answer that question for me is if Ponga was in that side, I wouldn't have Reece in the 17 at all. I'd probably have him as 18th man, which I think I originally might have if I was thinking like Billy Slater. But in my predicted team that I wanted, I did have Reece Walsh. But I can understand where some people are coming from because, that pick and stick mentality, which it doesn't seem to be there anymore. We mentioned at the start, a few changes from Billy trying to establish his new mark as coach. But if you wanted to go down that old routes, and maybe if you lose a close one in game 1 and you see Kalen Ponga continue that form, we could see that potentially in game 2. It's just down to Harry Grant and Ben Hunt, who have performed both on the big stage. Who's going to miss out, especially at Suncorp?
Yeah, it's a massive one for mine. Ponga, it's at the moment it's just too much of a risk in that, or you don't want to lose your fullback after 5 minutes and have to replace him with a 14 or something like that and change up the whole back line. If it was the case of how they're set up at the moment, it's just something I don't think Billy Slater obviously wasn't prepared to do and run that risk. And I can totally understand that. I think Ponga needs to prove another couple of weeks, and I think he's right in calculations for game 2 the way he is going. Don't forget his game last year, I think it was game 3, was ridiculous. One of the best Origin performances I've watched in a long, long time. It was up there with your Joey S sort of performances, how good he was. So he's definitely going to have a chance to prove himself. I don't think it's the end of his career or anything like that. But I feel like what Reece Walsh, another question for you for Reece Walsh is he's got a bit of a mistake in him. And I think he's one of the top mistake players in the game at the moment. He's made some of the most mistakes. Are you comfortable with him at Origin level?
Well, I think we've seen more positives than negatives throughout Reece's game. We've seen the Bronco in a fantastic position. He's only come to that side this year and he's helped them turn around and, gel together. You mentioned it. Yes, there are mistakes in his game, and that is the thing that does make me nervous. But I think based on the way that the season is going, I think you can say that Reece is in better form than Kalyn Ponga. If Kalyn Ponga had played a full season, then perhaps you could say, even if Ponga wasn't great week in, week out, you might say, well, you pick Ponga because Reece has those mistakes in his game. So it's very tough to judge without him even stepping foot on the field. I don't want to say that, he's going to make errors all night, because there are a lot of errors against that game that got him picked for Origin against the Melbourne Storm just a couple of weeks ago. But there were those highlights, his first touch of the ball, he ran 70 metres. What's not to say he's going to do that at Adelaide Oval and put his stamp on this game? He's going to be ready for that jersey. Is he going to make an error? Probably at some point.
The good thing about Reece Walsh, though, is that if he does make an error, he will go ahead and go out of his way to make up for it. And that's the dangerous thing about Reece Walsh is a lot of players will have dropped their heads. He's the opposite. He uses it to fire himself up, and that's a scary thing, especially in this arena with all the good players around him. You got to remember, this is the top caliber where other players will help him go to his level, and he'll be able to do a lot of his stuff where players will be able to keep up with him, or he'll have the hammer with him if he's doing one of these quick sweeps, short side sweeps and things like that. So it's a dangerous level there. We've got a question here. Ponga's career, is it over if he gets another concussion? Well, I don't know about. Honestly, I was worried about this one. I was worried about the last one he's just had about his career being over, and he's come back from that one. Probably the best he's come back in a long time from a head knock. For mine, he just looks a lot more confident with it, like he understands his body for once, where for mine he's been so confused with his head for a while. He's played sort of frustrated with it, and he's been really frustrated with it. Is this? I don't know if it's too early to say if his career will be over. He's still so young.
Yeah, I still think, and I agree with you that going into this one, I thought this really could be the end. This seems bad because it wasn't that bad of contact against the Tigers. But I think the thing about this is you've seen, Latrell Mitchell, obviously he's out with a calf strain now, and he's had these type of injuries where he's gone over to America, rehabilitated, and has played some of his best footy. And I think this is the same with Kalyn Ponga. I think we're going to see him continue to get into that fantastic player that we know that he can be. If he does have another concussion, I don't think his career is over, but I definitely think there needs to be consideration probably into rules about concussion. They've obviously come in with, those 18th man situations and things like that. But I think that'll be the kickstart of some changes, much like hate to bring it out, but the Drew Hutchinson, Dylan Brown incident where, the NRL really cracks down because of one key moment on a key player. And I think that could be what happens if Ponga does get another, let's say long-term concussion.
Yeah, I think so as well. One on the Josh Papali'i, we haven't really touched on this one yet, but obviously his retirement, I think it shows at the moment how good Queensland's depth is, because there hasn't been much said about his loss in a way, because it's been covered by such quality. And their forward pack, there's still players who haven't made the cut that for mine would be in the team any other sort of series. It's crazy, the Queensland team at the moment. As a Queensland fan, I just asked basically what are your thoughts on his retirement, because he's been such a good servant for the Maroons.
Well, he's been a good servant of the channel. Former interview with Josh Papali'i, he's been on a couple of times. I was speaking to him in Canberra. I couldn't actually obviously reveal at the time that he had retired, but he basically told me when I told him he's looking forward to Origin, and he gave me a head shake and said, "No, not this year. I'm calling it time. It's been good. I can't wait to watch the boys rip in all this stuff though." But yeah, as much as I love Josh, and I still think that he still offers a lot in the NRL for at least a year or two, I don't think he's ready to hang up the boots just yet. And I think it's controversial for me, and I guess a lot of people didn't, but I didn't have him in my Origin side. I felt bad doing it, and you mentioned it. There is so much depth within the forwards now, those young guns, and I think Lindsay Collins has been one of the best players for the Roosters, and I know a lot of people had players above him. Some people had, I think, even Tom Gilbert in the middle, but there were other players thrown amongst the mixed in those names. And the fact that, you could pick and choose so many different pairings for Queensland when it comes to that middle that people were picking just shows that that Josh has probably made the right decision, because maybe if he didn't retire, he may have been picked. And then someone who's on that team may not be playing tomorrow night that probably deserves a spot. But he's had a fantastic Maroons career. I still remember that try before that, heartbreaking 2019 moment at ANZ Stadium where Tedesco scored the match winner. I remember Papali'i scored a try at that game. It was a fantastic game of football. But I wish him all the best with the end of career towards the Raiders. But I feel like, maybe 2024 could be that last year. But I still don't think he's done just yet.
Yeah. Look, guys, we'll probably go for another about 5 minutes and then we'll wrap it up. It's been a long day for us content creators with Origin tomorrow, and tomorrow's going to be another big day as well. So fire in any last Origin questions you have for us. We'll get to it. I want to touch on one we had a little bit earlier. I'm trying to time when we talk about it, and I'm going to bring it up now. I'm going to turn this one into also where we should be playing Origin, because I think it's a good talking point for when we're on opposite sides with a maroon and blue brain. I think we can come together on these sorts of questions where should Origin be played firstly, because we're seeing it tomorrow night in Adelaide. It's still not sold out, which is a massive concern, and the advertising campaign in the lead up was a pretty dodgy one, if you ask me. We've had the jersey fiasco now with no sky blue jerseys. Are you a fan of it purely being between New South Wales and Queensland, or do you think this is the games we should be taking interstate?
I think it's cool to see it neutral. I don't know about, Perth and Adelaide. I guess Perth is interesting because they're really trying to, grow the game for another team probably over there. And we used to see it in Melbourne, which I quite liked. I think the Melbourne, we've got a team of NRL in Melbourne. You've got the fans in Melbourne, but there's probably something to do with the AFL there that leads to that all happening. Obviously, during the pandemic, we saw it being played all in Queensland. I think, for one, you've got a stadium like Allianz ready for it for sure if you were to have two games. But then again, would Queensland be like, disadvantaged and want to have a game in Townsville? But somewhere like Townsville doesn't get as big as a crowd. It has heat factors, things like that. So there's a lot of factors to take into this. So what they're doing at the moment, I think it works. I think Perth over Adelaide personally. But it's a tough one to talk about. It really is, because obviously we don't work for the NRL. We don't get to what happens. The decision we make is not the decision that they make. But yeah, I guess I'm on the stance of, I think they're trying to do it for the wrong reasons in relation to growing the game over there, when it should be based on just bringing it to that neutral venue for that purpose. Be crazy if Origin was played in America, though. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. For mine, I'd love it to just stay between New South Wales and Queensland as a selfish fan. That's my view. But if they're going to continue to take the games elsewhere and advertise the game, so to speak, they need to do it in places where I feel like it's actually achievable, their goals, which is to grow the game. Like, are you going to actually grow the game with people in Adelaide? Is there a plan in place to take a team to Adelaide. I don't think there is, so I feel like it's a bit stupid at the moment to be doing that. But if there's some, like, maybe once in a while reward New Zealand with maybe a game, because they're big rugby league fans. They've seen that. I don't know about the 58 streakers we've seen on the weekend.
Yeah, I was just about to say, everyone will run on the field.
Well, I don't know about that side of it, but we've seen that actually proper rugby league fans where there was hardly any advertising for that game and it was sold out. So I just think if they do it in a smart way, and I don't think it needs to be every series either. I think it needs to be every maybe third or fourth series. Take it out, leave it for the passionate fans to embrace what we have. And all rugby league fans, New South Wales and Queensland, love this. And as long as we keep having it, the games will stay and Origin will stay. I feel like Edwards make it into Origin scene ever. Will he make it in? Well, not while Tedesco's there and not while Tedesco is captain. So I don't think Freddie will ever drop James Tedesco, especially while he's coach and it's his power in that blue side. He won't get overturned. But Edwards is an interesting one because sort of how he plays, people say he could probably play on the wing maybe, but at the moment there's some decent wing options as well. So at the moment, can you see Edwards in the Origin arena anytime soon?
Absolutely, I can. If the Roosters miss finals this year, continue the way that they are currently playing, probably would have to lose to the Bulldogs this weekend, which, spoiler alert, I haven't done my tips, but I don't see that happening. I think Dylan Edwards is knocking on the door. Dylan Edwards has won a Clive Churchill medal. Dylan Edwards is a 2-time premiership player. He's developing into, very similar player to James Tedesco, where he's that young player achieving those things throughout his career. So maybe if Freddie, I don't think Freddie's going to lose his spot this year, but if Freddie was to lose his spot this year, absolutely, I could see Dylan next year. But even if he stays, I think he definitely has to consider, and, if New South Wales lose this series, if Tedesco not up to form and he plays all 3 games, how can you pick him next year? The fact that we as fans are already talking about whether he should be in that arena when he's one of the most elite players in the NRL when he's on form is nuts. But it's a true fact that right now, as fullbacks, it's not Trbojevic over Teddy over Trbojevic anymore. It's Edwards over Tedesco, the debate.
Yeah, let's end this on a funny one. The Greg Inglis debate comes up every Origin. If only originally from Queensland because he was born. Look, he was a New South Welshman. Everyone knows that he was up there, and it just somehow it worked the way it was. And he was a Queensland player. Look, he played his whole career there, so I think it's got to the point now where it's just whatever. It would have been great to see him in a Sky Blues jersey, but he was a Queenslander. So, all right, you mentioned it before. Let's try and win some people some money and obviously gamble responsibly, guys. But I want your first try scorer. I want your winner with a margin, so just 1 to 12, 13 plus, and a man of the match.
Oh, you know me, I like to go a score, so I'll go a score, but I guess 1 to 12. Look, if the right decisions for, team lineups for the Blues would have been made, I probably would have tipped them here. The New South Wales have a very good, neutral ground record over Queensland. I think with Latrell out, I think with some of the decisions made by Freddie, I think Queensland can win 1 to 12. I'm going to go Queensland by 6. I'm going to go with the scoreline of 22 points to 16. And I'm going to chuck at you 3 try scorers in order. My first try scorer is a bit of a surprise one. I think a lot of people will back him. But in the Origin arena, you don't often see, a winger score first. You normally really see someone surprising, like a back rower, like Tyson Frizzell, go over. For me, though, I think avoiding selection last year, being back on the stage, he's got a bit of strength about him, his experience. If he, catches an intercept as well, plenty of opportunity. $10 for Josh Addo-Carr is my first try scorer. Josh Addo-Carr from the New South Wales Blues, the Fox. My anytime try scorer. Actually, no, I'll go my roughie first. I'll get the Blues out of the way. I haven't got a second Queensland try. I know that I'll have to pick one tomorrow, but I am going to go Api Coruscant. I'm going to go Appy Coruscant. You mentioned he hasn't played 80 all year. I think he could potentially play 80 in this game. And at $7.50, I like Appy to, prove people wrong that he deserves to be there. But my anytime Maroons try scorer, I guess, best bet for the game. He's in try scoring form. It's a massive price. I'm going with Cameron Munster on the big stage at $4.10. Cameron Munster anytime. And my, multi for the game is Queensland to win and Josh Adokar to score a try. It's paying $5.50.
Have you got a man in the match?
I'd probably go Cameron Munster. He's paying $6.50.
Yeah, look, I will. This is where I try and be a bit neutral with my predictions and try and help people pay off their mortgage, which is sky high at the moment. So I'll go that I think Queensland win this one, unfortunately. I feel like Latrell factor is a massive loss mentally for the Blues and obviously a massive loss on the field for just how good he is. So I'll go Queensland. I'm not brave enough to pick a score, but let me just do it on the run. Queensland will win 24-16. And I'll go first try scorer. I think Tom Trbojevic will get the first one and just prove Origin Turbo is just a different beast. Man of the match, I'm going with you. I think Cameron Munster will be just the absolute deciding factor for Queensland to get over the line. We haven't seen Cleary yet get to that level of like the Munster can at Origin level, so that's a big test to see. One thing for the Blues, if Cleary can finally get up to that next level, I feel like he hasn't made that full step yet. If he can do that tomorrow night, the Blues definitely can win it for mine. And it lost a lot now, rests on Nathan Cleary's shoulder with the loss of Latrell Mitchell. But Hayden, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks, Hayden, from the Entertain House. As I said, Hayden, give yourself a quick plug. Let everyone out there who for some reason isn't following you, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, guys. So obviously on YouTube at the Entertain House, we are aiming for 5,000 subscribers. I think we're on 4.1 or 4.9, something like that at the moment. I've also included in recent videos, there is a link to merch. If you are a big fan of the channel, make sure you check out the merch. And if you're a Parramatta Eels fan, which we are part of the Talking Para podcast, there is some Para-related products over there. You can find me on Instagram at the Entertain House, as well as TikTok Entertain YT, where it's not only rugby league content, but a bit of, TV shows, movies, bit of fun outside of the sporting world.
It's a fantastic page, guys. Follow it on a daily basis. I get the pop-ups, one of the first ones on my page to pop up. Love it. Look, talk about YouTube. I'm only on about 60, guys. So if you have a YouTube account, please go ahead and give League of Inches a like, a follow. Definitely see all our videos that come out weekly. I want to say a massive thanks to the sponsor at the moment, Tate Sports Cards. And any sports card related inquiries, please go ahead, give him a message. He'll get back to you on the day. But as I said, Hayden, thank you for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching. Bring one more sleep. I'll be like a kid at Christmas, won't be able to sleep. Love me footy, love State of Origin time. Go the Blues, and thank you once again.
Thanks for having me on, Joel.